My guest today is Mark Reinfeld. He's a multi-award-winning chef and author of 7 books, including the best-selling 30-Minute Vegan series and his latest book, Healing the Vegan Way. Mark has over 20 years experience preparing creative, vegan, and raw food cuisine and has offered consulting services for clients such as Google, Whole Foods, Bon Appetit Management, and more. Through his vegan fusion company, he offers consulting, chef services, culinary workshops, and chef trainings internationally. You can learn more at veganfusion.com. Hey Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey Matt, it's great to be here. Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's so great to have you. I've been a fan for a long time.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to talk about your new book, and I've read, tons of books on plant-based nutrition and recipe books, and yours really stood out. And one of the reasons why it stood out was the focus on nutrient density, which I think is so key. And I wondered if you could start with maybe just a little introduction of why the focus on nutrient density. Why is that so important, and what makes this book different than other books that might not have that focus?
Cool, thanks. Well, just as you know, a lot of your listeners probably know the idea of nutrient density, or they refer to them as superfoods, is just the idea of packing as many nutrients in a small quantity of food. And so to me, it's just, I'm really into promoting a plant-based diet and lifestyle, and a lot of people who make that change may not have the same focus on the healing quality of their food choices. So by highlighting the nutrient dense or the powerful superfoods that we have at our disposal, it's for me a way of creating optimal health for people. And I like to say, just the emphasize the power that plants have to heal and transform our lives. So these are the foods that can bring about that healing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the most nutrient-dense foods? I mean, I think people probably know, have kind of like a general concept. Just in terms of, so say if we're looking at like a standard American diet and we wanted to start to make some shifts, like what are the most nutrient-dense, powerful foods that we could start adding into someone's diet?
Nice. Well, in some way, I like to say all plants are superfoods in their own right. And so for me, it's an emphasis on incorporating the colors of the rainbow in our food choices, and with an emphasis on the green. So the dark leafy greens, you probably are aware, kale is the superfood poster child, and things like collards and anything in the cruciferous veggie family like broccoli and Brussels sprouts are going to give you these nutrient dense qualities. And also in the fruit category, berries are particularly high. So commonly available ones such as blueberries are good ones to include. Then you could get, if you want to get goji berries or acai. There's always newly discovered foods coming out from the South America region that enter into the market. So it's the list is always evolving, and for me I return to a focus on just essentially a whole foods plant-based diet with a focus on incorporating as many colors of the rainbow as possible.
Cool. Yeah, I always wonder where those new superfoods come from. Who is it that's deciding this is going to be the new superfood, and we're going in this direction.
There's some shamans sitting around in the Peruvian jungle, I think, make the call.
Yeah, I think so. Moringa is now becoming very popular. I keep hearing about that one.
Totally. Yeah, it has more iron. It's very iron heavy.
Yeah. So when I think nutrient density, I come back to raw foods quite a bit because, as we know, when you cook foods, you lose a certain amount of nutrients. And not to say that some foods aren't more bioavailable when they are cooked. Lycopene is the most common example, and you do mention that in your book.
Right.
What is the best? So I kind of started out on a very strict raw food diet and then transitioned over time into more whole food, plant-based. But there's things that I still incorporate from the days when I was fully raw, because I feel like they're kind of the best thing about the raw diet that I can incorporate, that are super nutrient dense, super easy to prepare. Do you have things like that you really go to in terms of, what are the best pieces of the raw diet that someone could incorporate?
Great question. I mean, I go back to the greens, doing a green smoothie. People ask, like a lot of people ask, how can I get started and eating a healthy diet, and what are some easy decisions I can make? So the two things that I encourage people is just to get really creative with salads, and a majority of that'll be raw food. So again, I encourage people to go to the produce aisle of the food store and just like pick a new ingredient a week or a month and just learn about it. So you get into like kohlrabi or other ingredients that you may not see in a typical salad, but just incorporating, again, going back to like the colorful, having your food be, I like to emphasize the idea of food as art. So
Mm,
salads are a great way to bring like the vibrancy of nature into our lives.
mhm,
And then also doing smoothies. So smoothies are another simple way to get these nutrient dense foods into your diet. And so in the morning, like I encourage people to make a green smoothie. You could add different fresh berries or seasonal. As you know, I was in Hawaii for several years, so the smoothies are over the top down there with, jackfruit and cherimoya, atamoya. So
oh
all these
man.
vibrant, yeah, it's pretty easy to get back to it. So those would be the two basics I return to.
I love it. Yeah, those are the main things that I kept too. I mean, I just learned how to make these huge gorilla salads. And then
Right.
also the salad dressings, I think, was one piece that was really important because it's really, it's hard to go out and buy a salad dressing that doesn't have all these added sugars and different ingredients that we don't necessarily want to be consuming. So, like, learning how to make a really good, like, raw salad dressing, I think is
Nice.
really key.
Yeah, I like using tahini as a base for dressings. It's another, I put the sesame seed in the superfood category, or making hemp seed dressings, like a hemp seed ranch you could do raw, which adds like that flavor.
Hmm.
That's the other thing. As much as we know about the importance of including more plant-based foods in our diet, like the food has to taste good. So that's where I like to work with people, just to awaken the creative chef they have within themselves and see
Mm.
them really blossom as they just tap into that part of themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm working with a client right now, and it's been this really new exploration into these new foods and finding that balance between something that is healthy and health promoting and healing and also satisfies, especially if someone has been on a standard diet for a while, these old tastes,
Yes.
it's finding that middle ground is just so important.
Yeah, I like to, when I do these classes internationally, and I like to kind of frame this idea of how to work with food and prepare food. And I say that it's like an equalizer, and that
Mm,
there's three knobs. One, you have nutrition, one you have flavor, and one you have presentation. So
mm,
sometimes, depending on the situation, you may want to increase the nutritional quality and decrease the presentation. So using like a brown rice instead of a white rice. Sometimes you want to increase the presentation and decrease the nutrients. Like if you're going to peel the carrots in a salad, you may get more nutrients if you left the carrots unpeeled, but for that purpose you want it to pop, so you may sacrifice the nutrients in that case. So it's always striking a balance with that.
mm. I love that. I love that idea. And that really lets you be flexible to meet like whatever situation you're in.
Yeah, that's a key for me, and I just been doing more interviews now and just emphasizing like the food is crucial in our healing. It's also like our relationship to food that's really important, and so for me, having a lot of ease and flexibility in like how we approach food is very important. So
Mm.
that's why I like looking at it that way.
Very cool. One thing that I know people struggle with is when they change their diet. Um, some people do have a lot of competency in the kitchen where they're really good at cooking, and other people really don't. And given your training as a chef and your background as a chef and an educator for so many years, if someone is coming in and they want to improve their culinary skills, like what's the best way to begin to do that? Like where's the first place to look? Do you want to learn knife skills? Is that going to be the biggest barrier that helps you to save time and create more ease in the kitchen? Is it more exploring flavors? What would you recommend in that situation?
That's great question. I mean, you need some basic knife skills. I think for me, like creating the vibe in the kitchen is important.
Hmm.
So, like, you want to work with things that you like, enjoy working with. So, if you don't have a sharp knife, and if you have like a dull knife on a glass cutting board, you're trying to cut a tomato, you're not gonna feel like super inspired. So I like people like just and even just creating like playing music and just creating a nice environment where you like to be. And I like to just have people like leave their cares at the door and really immerse themselves in the creative act. And I think being present and mindful with their food preparation is another thing that I emphasize. And I like to say, like, if you could eat food and know what tastes good, you have the capacity to create that food. So
Mm,
I think it's a combination of having a positive attitude, not being hard on yourself when make a misstep, and then also just keep practicing. To me, it's all about practice and
mm.
persistence with it. So, start simple. Encourage people to just try like an herb, like chop up some dill, taste it, see if you like it, try cilantro, parsley. You develop these affinities for different flavors, and then you could just build it from there.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, when I first went plant based, I had like no idea how to cook. I had no idea what I was doing, but it became this really fun exploration. And I remember I would go into the grocery store and I would just like look at all these new ingredients. And you can approach that from a place of being very overwhelmed, or you can approach that as like, look at this whole new world that I get to explore. And
Yeah.
and as I proceeded with that, and I did have some missteps. There was some times that I made a dish and threw it away. There was one mushroom gravy that was particularly inedible.
Uh-huh.
But more often than not, I would make something that was pretty good, and then it became this really just amazing exploration, and it became like tasting in 3D. There was this
Mm.
whole new
Yeah.
dimension that
Yeah.
I
Technicolor living.
yeah, exactly. That I'd never really explored before. So I love that, and I love the idea of like setting the intention in the kitchen, because you can
Mm.
come home and it can really feel like a chore, or if you do create this very relaxed, space that you really want to be in, it can be a very relaxing way. And I've gone through periods where that's kind of how I decompress after a day, is
Yeah,
just being in
that's
the
what
kitchen.
yeah. Yeah, that's what drew me. I always like cooking as a child. I actually found it comforting
Hmm.
even through like elementary school and junior high. I would find myself like it was just calming for me to be in the kitchen, so that I developed that it's like a practice. You could pretty much use anything as the object of your contemplation. And so when you're
Hmm.
working with food and flavors and the idea of bringing healing into the world, and also cultivating gratitude and mindfulness for we're preparing the food for, even if it's yourself.
Hmm. Very cool. What can't you live without in your own kitchen? Like, what are your go-to tools? And let's
Oh,
make it
good one.
just one. What's the
Oh,
one
okay.
most important tool that you have?
Like a tool or a piece of like food, or I
E-
mean,
Either or. It's
well, I
open-ended.
love the ceramic knife that I have. I
Hmm.
like that it's just light and sharp. Like that's my tool of choice. If I was stuck on a desert, if I was stuck on an island with only one ingredient, it would probably be the coconut.
Hmm.
So
That's a good choice. Likely to be found on an island too, so that's
right,
good.
totally, or any island that I would want to be on at least.
Yeah. Um, what superfoods do you think are worthwhile, and which ones have kind of like are overhyped, are overmarketed? Like, what do you think are
That's
the best superfoods that you use, and which ones are overhyped?
That's a really good one. I mean, for me, it's also a balance of like the cost factor as well. Like some of the superfoods that come on the market, I think for a majority of people may be, prohibitively expensive. Like the superfoods that I'm still drawn to on a regular basis, I would say like hemp seeds, cacao. I know I just said the expensive superfoods, but maca is still drawn to, even though that's been up there lately. Uh, for the outdated, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I don't know that any are like that I would say are like not in the superfood category anymore. They just like aren't like the superfood
The
of
new
choice.
thing.
So like flax seeds were big.
Hmm.
I mean, well, Hippocrates, we're big since Hippocrates, the flax seeds, and then chia seeds kind of, moved up to the top tier, and that level. Chia seeds also I like incorporating
Hmm.
pretty much daily. Camelina seed is also one that I was introduced to
Hmm.
in the seed category that I enjoy as well.
I haven't heard of that one. How do you use it?
It's It's you could get it in the seed form, and it's also pressed in the oil form. I've done these trainings, like I mentioned, internationally, and I had someone who says he healed himself from MS with a raw food diet, and he introduced me to the camelina seed, and apparently it has the best omega 3 to omega 6 ratio,
Hmm.
and he was a big proponent. So you could get it in like the seed form. I would add into smoothies
Hmm.
would be the form that I would use it in.
Okay, great. I'm gonna have to try that. It's not every day I hear of a superfood that I haven't, been into or tried. So that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Well, so a Peruvian shaman passed that one on. So,
That's great. Um, so I want to diverge a little bit and talk about your experience with kind of this bigger picture of food activism and food as medicine. And I know that you've been involved in a lot of different projects. You ran a restaurant for a while, I
yeah.
believe.
Yes.
And so just talk to me a little bit about what you're up to these days and how your focus is shifting and what you're up to with food activism.
Well, I like my business partner and the co-author of the first book I did, Vegan Fusion World Cuisine, introduced me to this concept of food activism. And for me, it's like the idea that our food choices, the impact that they have on our health, the environment, and just creating a more peaceful world for us to live in, to me is like there's a lot of information out there now about the benefits of plant-based foods. I think vegan is not as villainized as it used to be. You can get by using the vegan word now more, I think, than you could 5 or 10 years ago. And with all the mounting medical information that I included in my book, to me, the crucial part is having the food taste good. So
Mm,
you could know everything that you need to know, but if the food doesn't taste good, it's not going to really go very far. So
mm,
I've devoted a lot of my energy towards training people on how to create food that tastes amazing. And so I do these workshops and trainings internationally. I have an online culinary course, and I also a certification program. And the level one is working with people who have never cooked before up to cordon bleu chefs. I just did a training for Bon Appetit Management Company, and so I work with experienced executive chefs and train them on plant-based cuisine. And also I do teacher trainings where I teach people these basic skills that they need in order to conduct cooking classes and demos in their community. And you might have heard that the expression, if you give a person a piece of tofu, you could feed them for a day, but if you show them how to bake the tofu, you could feed them for a lifetime. So
I've heard something similar to
yeah, something similar.
that.
But so this idea of like empowering people to prepare the food themselves to have it taste good. And so feeding people gives you the sense when you feed someone a nice healthy meal that tastes good, you have a level of satisfaction, and then when you show them how to prepare the food, it just makes a deeper impact. And so I really love working with people that are then going to go out and teach other people how to prepare the food. And why I like referring to it as activism is because I feel if someone devoted themselves to like Food Not Bombs or the Peace Corps or other like charitable organizations to do positive good in the world, for me, showing people how to prepare plant-based cuisine is on the same level and has a huge potential for creating the positive, sustainable future that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's 100% why we do the work that we do.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of things where there's perhaps disagreement about, we should go in this direction or that direction, or, like politically we're trying to make this change, but it's not very effective. There's a lot of activism that you could maybe question the impact of whether or not it's actually making a difference.
Right.
And when we look at the food system and the healthcare system, I mean, it's just so obvious the change that we need to make and how powerful of a change it is, to just shift and eat more plants in your diet.
Totally.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just this. Yeah, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
And even just a little bit makes a big difference. So I'm all about like gentle transitions. I like encourage people. I would like to meet people wherever they're at. So if they're on a standard American diet, like even just having a meal a week, plant-based, or a day a week, like slow steps, and then the food speaks for itself, and also the level of healing speaks for itself. Like you probably heard people that will do like a 30-day vegan challenge and never go back not because they're forced to, but because they experience the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what happened to me. I mean, I went plant-based on a dare essentially, and then
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
well, it wasn't exactly a dare, but my yoga teacher was like, "You should try this out," and I was like, "Okay, I'll try it." And then I felt so good after, it was like 30 days, and I was like, "Oh crap,
Yeah,
like,
nice.
I'm
Yeah.
hooked."
Well, yeah, and I like on that aspect, what brings people to the plant-based lifestyle. I like to say, and I mentioned it in the book, Healing the Vegan Way, the book that just came out, the idea of that it's like there's three doors that you can go through. One is the health or medical door, one is the environmental or political door, and the other is the ethical or animal rights door. But all the doors lead into the same room. And then once you're in the room, you could start hearing about these
Mm,
other reasons that people have adopted, and then you can incorporate them. So
mhm.
eventually it all combines. But I love hearing about what was that brought people to including more
Yeah.
plant-based foods.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. It is cool to see that the vegan isn't so vilified and it's becoming more mainstream. It feels like a turning point. And
Definitely.
we have people like you to thank and so many
Oh,
leaders to
eh,
thank, for so many years of tireless effort. We get to
yeah.
stand on the shoulders, and it's really amazing.
Yeah, we all do. There's like yeah, the first cookbook author I think was a Greek writer at the time of Plato, so we're all standing on his shoulders, all the cookbook authors.
uh, yeah, so we're a few thousand years in. um,
But yeah, it's very cool to feel like, I mean, to me, the connecting like livelihood with this deeper, bigger purpose of creating a positive future. And I love the idea of 7 generational thinking that's prominent in Native American teachings, where we make decisions and think of how they're going to impact the next several generations. And you could argue till the end of time what's the healthiest diet. I personally feel the plant-based diet is the healthiest diet. I also really never engaged with people on that level, trying to
mm,
convince them. It's when you take the sustainability and the compassion and the nonviolence aspect of a plant-based diet, that's where I think it really shines and can create this future that we all want to see for our species and the planet.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's such a perfect way to wrap up. So here we have it, healing
Nice,
the
man.
vegan way, and
Awesome.
and I think you really hit the nail on the head in terms of why I think that this is such a good resource. Is like finding that balance between super healing food that is also delicious. It's very easy to go in one direction or the other, and it's hard to find someone that really strikes that balance. And I agree, like it absolutely has to be palatable.
Nice.
So hopefully this brings a lot of transformation to a lot of people that need it. And I just want to say thank you for doing the work that you do.
Cool, man. Thank you, Matt. It's great to be on here with you.
Yeah, so just to reiterate right before we wrap up, so if someone wants to learn more, what's the best way for them to do so?
The website veganfusion.com is the best way to reach me. I'm very responsive to emails, so if people have any questions, they could email me, and we put out a free newsletter with recipes and current events. And I travel internationally, so I could be coming to a town near you if you want to do a deeper training, and we have our online course there on the website as well. So veganfusion.com.
Great, Mark. Thank you so much for being on.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Keep up the great work, man.
Yeah, you too. Take
Cool.
care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.